Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk. What is that? What the heck is that, Zach? What was that?
That was a satellite.
That was live radio, baby.
Good thing it wasn't recorded, though.
Live from Little Rock. Okay, so in the podcast version, people are going to be like, why is Shane acting crazy?
Yes.
Okay, live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey. And that's live radio, baby. I love it. Into the journey we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. This is Shane Plays Geek Talk. It's Geek Talk Radio. A lot of fun. Love to do it. This is live. Or if you're listening at 1 p.m. Central on Saturday, February 9th, this is live on 101.1 FM The Answer, or also on the live stream at 101.1fmtheanswer.com. Or if you're listening after the fact on the podcast or on YouTube or Krypton Radio, any of that, we're just so glad to have you again. I'm Shane Stacks. If you're listening live, you can call in at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. Now I'm going to introduce my topic and my guest here in a second. If you heard the little sample right before the "Shall we play a game?" all the intro, then you probably know what today's topic is. But I have a guest, and we may have another guest calling in later, depending on their schedule. But I went online and I said, "Is there anybody out here who is a big nerd for X?" And that evidently somebody tagged this person knowing that they're a big fan of this. So I'll introduce them here in a second. But like I say, I cut it close today, Zach.
Yes, you did.
I may or may not, and I admit to nothing without proof, and even then I will deny it, have broken some laws coming down 6:30. I'm not saying I did. Every show, like I show prepped for hours yesterday and a couple more. I even told Sheila, I said, there's not going to be any crazy dashing out the door today, baby. Mm-hmm. Guess what I ended up doing? Out of the way! Here I go. Where's my phone? Oh, my God. Peeling out. I cut it about as close as you can cut it without actually not making it. I thought I was going to have to call in and do like the first couple of minutes of the show on phone. But anyway, all right. So I'm going to introduce my guest. This is Robin, who has been kind enough to talk to us all the way from sunny, I'm assuming it's sunny, California, and he is a passionate fan of the GoBots. So today we're going to talk about GoBots. And Robin, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Shane?
Man, glad. Thank you so much for jumping on. I like to cover, this is a general interest geek talk show. Like my personal interests are role-playing games and comic books and movies, and I love the Transformers and all that stuff, but I like to expose people to different topics. Now, I know the GoBots, but I am not deep on the GoBots. So, when I sent that flare up on Twitter and you responded, I really appreciate it. Because even my local geek crew here in Arkansas that goes pretty deep on a lot of toys, I didn't really find a lot of deep GoBot here. So, so I just want you to bring your enthusiasm, just be yourself. This isn't a formal Q&A. It's just a conversation. I like to do this like if you were at a restaurant and you overheard an interesting conversation at the next table and wanted to eavesdrop. So just, be yourself and we'll just have fun. But tell us a little bit. Actually, I got what's called an icebreaker question for you. And then after that, I'll let you tell us how you got into the GoBots, which of course are transforming robot toys from the 80s, which we will find out during the course of the show, which came first, the GoBot or the Transformer. But do you collect anything, Robin? I'm assuming you collect GoBots, but do you collect anything else?
Oh man, that's my primary hobby is toy collecting. I got hundreds of Transformers and Marvel Legends, and my wife collects a lot of like Monster High dolls and that kind of thing, and we both just love collecting toys, so we go all in on it.
Nice. So and this is a good time to be a toy collector. There's a there's a huge renaissance golden age of toys, RPG games, you name it, and then there's a lot of 80s retro love going on. So where does GoBots fit in all of your collecting?
Well, GoBots has always been a love of mine. When I was growing up, my parents didn't have a whole lot of money, but they liked to get me whatever they could. And so, honestly, GoBots started out as just the more economical option because, for the same price as like Optimus Prime, you could get 3 or 4 GoBots.
And that seems to be a recurring theme in my research. A lot of people got, or it was they got Christmas presents and birthday presents that relatives, they thought they were giving them Transformers. Yeah,
that seems to be pretty common too.
Yeah, I saw, and I, there's what I found kind of researching GoBots is, especially like if you look at like YouTube comments on GoBots videos and stuff like that, people either really love the GoBots or kind of look down on the GoBots. So it's one of those fandoms that you got to really love it because you're going to take a couple of licks. And like somebody characterized them as and I'm not saying this is a fair characterization. I'm just saying that, like I also said, they're like the Kmart of Transformers. And then, but the comment right after that was, I love the GoBots, so that's, it's kind of, there's not much middle ground on the GoBots, I guess. No,
there really isn't. Either find the people they're really passionate about, or they just look at it as, Transformers knockoff.
Right. Which is ironic, as you probably know, which we'll discuss later in the show. Which, I'm finding some surprising stuff, in my research. But so how many toys do you think that you own? And out of those, how many are GoBots?
As far as like overall number, it's somewhere in the, I want to say, I'll just say 700 just to be safe.
Great.
Probably
Googly
somewhere
mooglies.
More or less. I don't know.
Now, I'm assuming that's multiples of figures because there weren't that many released in the line, right?
Oh, for just GoBots, no.
Yeah.
Just GoBots, I, at the moment, only have like 3 dozen.
That's still a lot because there weren't.
Yeah. But
I mean,
I'm recollecting from my youth because, I got rid of a lot of toys when I was younger. So
yeah, I'm doing a lot of that today with role-playing games and books and stuff. So, kicking myself. So, and do you happen to know how many GoBots total were in the line before they shut down in 87?
Total, I want to say it was creeping close to 100, but that's
right.
That it could be more than that because there were a lot of like sublines and stuff produced by other contractors that weren't made by Tonka. So it's hard to tell exactly how many licensed GoBot toys there were. Okay,
I'm sure there's some wiki out there that maybe I can find it and put it in the show notes. I do that a lot. Like I'll edit in extra stuff on the podcast version. So the GoBots were basically, and we'll talk more about this later in the show. We'll have a news segment that you're welcome to participate in every aspect of the show. I like my guests to just chat with me.
Right.
They were, the original GoBots were they 3.5-inch figures? The average GoBot was smaller than your average Transformer. Now your Bumblebee and your Ravage and, your cassette, Transformers and all that were about the same size, but the average, like I would say, Leader 1, who is the leader of the good or the friendly. They don't say good and evil. They say friendly and enemy, and then they say guardian and renegades. Leader 1 was roughly the size or a little bit larger than like the Bumblebee.
I actually have a Leader 1 sitting in front of me. I'm in my office right now, and he's I'd say maybe like about the size of a Bumblebee and a half, maybe a little taller. Yeah,
he's a little taller. He's 3.5 inches. And then they came out later with the Super GoBots when they were trying to compete with Transformers, and they were about double the size, if not taller. I can't remember exactly.
Actually, looking at the Super Leader 1 I got, and he's like between 5 and 6 inches.
Okay. So, and they did. It's interesting that while competing with the Transformers, the GoBots, Tonka, who owned the GoBots, they imported them from Japan and changed them up a little bit. We'll talk about that more later in the show. They did a lot to try to stay in the public eye while the Transformers were going nuts.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they were much less of a flash in the pan than I realized. So, and we'll let you talk about that too later in the show. So, before I move on to the news segment, you were saying earlier kind of how you got into the GoBots, and I took us off on a tangent. So I want you to kind of finish that off, if you will.
Well, like I said, my parents were very economically minded, so we'd get GoBots because you could get more for the same amount of money as one Transformer, and also my mom was kind of coming off of the whole the hippie movement of the '70s still.
Okay. Yeah.
And well, she was pretty anti-violence, and so the GoBots, while they still had their big robot battles in the animated series, they were a lot less overt about it. Firing lasers from their fists rather than using guns.
Mm-hmm.
Things like Crasher using her earthquake stomp, and so that. She was a lot more lax on me watching those when I was really little, and I was hooked. I loved it. I think until I started heavily watching like Ninja Turtles and stuff, that was my go-to cartoon.
Okay. So did you, like at any time where you're like, wait a minute, I've been getting the Kmart of Transformers. Did you ever feel that, or you were like, I just love these things?
It pretty much just love them. Like I can't really recall that I was all that interested in getting into Transformers by comparison. I didn't have a lot of friends who were into Transformers. They were into all the other toy lines and stuff. So, yeah, GoBots was it for me, really, and I was happy with it.
And about how old were you during this, like when you were really heavy into GoBots?
Well, I was born in '83, so I was really little when GoBots was still...
You were born in the same year that
around.
the GoBots came over to the States.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, they were still popular enough that you were still seeing them on TV and in the stores when I was old enough to remember it. So,
well, that's cool. All right. Well, very cool. So, all right, we'll talk about that more later in the show, and maybe your favorite GoBots. I do want to mention now, so I don't forget later. I will say that the one toy that I think that the GoBots put out that the Transformers never matched was the Command Center. That thing is cool. Yeah, it's like a trundling huge tank thing, or it's a spaceship. It's got all these little areas inside, including a cafeteria. I'm not sure what GoBots eat, but they have a cafeteria. They have a little prison cell. And it just had all kinds of little wonderful details in it that, like, even like Metroplex or Trypticon from the Transformers didn't match that level of fun. Like, well, I've got a cafeteria here, and I have a jail cell here, and I have, it was just really neat. So, did you ever get to own that? Was that like the big, holy object of GoBots?
I never got to own it when I was little. I had a friend who had it, though, so I got to mess around with it. And, yeah, I mean, having essentially... an AT-AT walker that turned into like a miniature version of like a He-Man playset. That was great.
Yeah, that was a good toy, and I would have liked to have owned that. But okay, well, I'm gonna move on. We'll hit a couple other topics, and we will circle back to go deeper on the GoBots fairly soon. Thanks for all of that, and thanks again for being on the show. Now, if folks don't know, the head of my news team, Sal. And it's not him, but it's his grandmother and her dog Muffin. And I suspect it's more Muffin than anything else. But if I don't banter with my producer Zach, then Sal's grandmother and her dog Muffin get upset with me. And it's no joke. You don't mess with Muffin. So I got to banter with Zach. Zach, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Now, you are a burgeoning sports analyst. And last year, you gave like a 30-point, I don't know is spread the right word on the Super Bowl? Yeah. You said, but it was a much lower scoring game than that, wasn't it?
It was. Last year, it was like 41-33.
Was that, so did that surprise you? Obviously it surprised you because you were expecting, but when you were really like, wow, how did that pop? Give me your thoughts on that, Mr. Burgeoning.
Well, because, today, over the past about 5 years, the NFL's offensive scoring has gone up. Everyone is just scoring a bunch of points. And so for that game to basically turn out to be an old school defensive game, 13-3, that was surprising even to me. So I was just looking at your ring that you gave me last week for inspiration.
No, Tom Brady sent that, pal.
No.
Tom Brady sent you that ring, not me. So you didn't pawn it?
It was used as inspiration.
Okay.
The game was just tied at 3 for such a long time.
It was, yeah.
I was like, I need to look at this ring for inspiration. Number 6 is still coming.
Hey, send me, if you don't want to throw it out on air, send me, tell me through the feedback thing, the talk back, what your Twitter is again.
Okay.
I gotta look something up. Can you do that real quick?
Yeah.
Now?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking something up. I meant to pull this up before the show. Okay, that little pause was wild. I put in an 8 on the end. That's where I was messing up.
Gotcha.
So here's the thing. This is why I'm looking this up. And we'll probably get a more detailed report later. But, we talked last week how Muffin has a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, Robin, have you ever had a dog nemesis?
A dog nemesis?
Yeah, because Muffin's a dog.
No, I can't say I have.
Okay, you don't want one. That's all I'm saying. You don't want a dog nemesis is all I'm saying. I'm starting to suspect that Sal's grandmother, what do they call that? The Stockholm syndrome, where you come to love your kidnapper? I'm starting to think that that's what's going on here, and it's really all Muffin. But but Muffin has a smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
and evidently Muffin was following your tweets during the Super Bowl.
Oh.
And we're going to have a report from the Mobley Detective Agency on the ones that he liked the best.
Gotcha.
Now, one that he definitely viewed was you said something like, "Oh goodness, I'm always nervous till Brady makes his first mistake,
Exactly.
but then after that I'm good because the one mistake's out of the way." So,
Yes.
and then evidently, and I didn't see all of them, but according to Mobley Detective Agency, there were a lot of tweets that were just inarticulate screaming and yelling, and so those got a lot of attention from Muffin. So I don't know.
I can't defend myself on that. It's the Super Bowl. You let everything go basically.
So you had a good time.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, and I'm still researching whether we can actually say the word Super Bowl based on last week's discussion, or if we have to say the bowl that Superman eats his cereal out of. So
Superb owl.
the superb owl did have its annual flyover.
Think about you. I was way ahead of the time.
I was, man.
Way ahead.
The superb. Robin, do you love the annual flyover of the most majestic owl every year?
It is a beautiful sight.
It is a beautiful sight, and then there's also a football game that day. So, are you a football guy, Robin?
I'm not. I've never really got into the sports myself.
Yeah, that's kind of me. I like a little bit of boxing, a little bit of other stuff, but I've never gotten into football, much to the shame of my family. So, all right. So, and Muffin might be sad by one of the news items that we have here. So, but yeah, I'm waiting on that report from the Mobley Detective Agency on which tweets that Muffin liked the best. I'm trying to pull up your man. You tweeted more than I realized. There's a lot of Patriot celebratory tweets here, Zach. Yep, there's a lot of celebratory because the Patriots are your favorite. Now, would you have been deflated if they?
You just had to.
I had to, man. I'm not even into football.
I know exactly.
But I love a sick burn as much as the next person, whether I understand the full ramifications of it or not. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on the microphone in the super secret newsroom, or the super secret microphone in the newsroom, and see what Sal and his news team are up to. Okay, there they go, working hard on a Saturday. Folks, remember, for every $1 of Patreon support the show gets, the news team gets a penny an hour raise. And Sal's got to support his grandmother, folks, so, there you go. And again, I love Patreon support, but it's not, the show, it's a blend of Patreon support and sponsors. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate my new sponsor, Mustard Seed Moving of Arkansas. Mustard Seed Moving of Arkansas. So and that ad, which you'll hear today, my lovely wife recorded that. I think she did a great job. So, okay, got a couple of news items here. One, and I will, as always, try to move through these quickly. I have a friend, and this is literally the name he goes by. I've known him for a few years in the game design community. Mad Merv. Mad Merv has a new game called Apolune. and it's on Apolune. It's 1P, Apolune. This will be in the show notes. And he just released it on Steam a couple of days ago. And he says, Apolune is a minimalist, endless procedural evolutionary space war. Enjoy fighting wave after wave of enemy starships in a classic 2D simulation that evolves and mutates as you fight on, victorious. Defend the Earth from the hordes of vile aliens in your simple craft. Boy, it sounds like Twitter these days. Point and shoot. So and that's on Steam. It's Apolune. However, Merv was generous enough to give me some Steam keys to give away. So if anybody out there wants to do a 2D spaceship shoot 'em up, then just tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays, or email me at shane@shaneplays.com, ShanePlays.com. And while supplies last, you can get a Steam key and check this game out. All I would ask is that you let people know about it to help out Merv. And I have no financial stake in this game. I'm just, throwing it out there for a friend. So, are you a gamer at all, Robin?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll send you a key for this. Let me make a note to do that. So,
all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Send Robin a key. So, see, you come to Shane Plays and you get stuff. And the giveaway I mentioned last week, which is the signed copy, including a patch of Trump Space Force by Timothy Lim and Chuck Dixon and Mark Pellegrini and others, is still available. You got to go find one of my tweets where I'm talking about the giveaway at Shane Plays on Twitter, and either retweet and or reply to that, and you'll be entered into the giveaway. And I haven't come with a firm date yet when I'm going to give it out, but it's coming up soon. So I'm going to throw another hookup to some. I wouldn't say that we're pals, but I like them a heck of a lot, and they've been on the show more than once. And that's Mike Whitwer and John Peterson, the D&D historians. They had that art book, which is Dungeons and Dragons Art and Arcana, which is an amazing, coffee table book's the best way to describe it. Exploring the history of Dungeons and Dragons through its art, all the way back to the very beginning, with all kinds of amazing little scrapbooky kind of tidbits and stuff like that. Well, they're up for Best Art Book in the 2019 Locus poll and survey. Locus is the magazine of science fiction and fantasy. They describe themselves as the magazine of the science fiction and fantasy field. They've won the Hugo 30 times. If you know what the Hugo is, that's a big deal. But the link will be on the show notes. But go to locusmag.com, LOCUSMAG.com, and vote in the survey. And I think that Mike Whitwer, his brother Sam Whitwer, the actor who is currently on Supergirl playing Agent Liberty, and he's been on Battlestar Galactica, and he's the voice of Darth Maul and all that stuff. It was him, Sam. Or Mike, John, and there's another, Kyle Newman, I believe, is the other guy. And it's an amazing book. I really think it deserves to win. But, don't vote for it unless your conscience says, yeah, I should vote. Don't vote for it as a popularity contest, but I think it deserves it. And there's a lot of wonderful topics, best horror, best fantasy, best sci-fi, best anthology, best first novel. There's a lot of really good stuff to vote for in there. So go check it out. Now, I think we have another. Was that our other guest? It wasn't? Okay, the phone rang for a second. I was going to hold a news item in case that was him. We may or may not be joined by Randy of the Nerd Out. I'm not sure if it's a podcast or a YouTube channel, but it's Nerd Out, KNERDOUT. He also responded and said, I'm a GoBots fan, but he wasn't sure if his schedule was going to let him. So I just said, call in at any point if you can. Okay, so this one's sad. Robin, you're allowed to be sad by this news item, okay?
All righty.
All right. And I'm pretty sure Muffin's going to be sad by this one, too. All right. Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is from Sci-Fi Wire, and the byline is Don K. Guardians of the Galaxy, the real Rocket Raccoon passes away.
Oh.
Yeah. And also, it also says Chris Pratt confirms James Gunn's Volume 3 script is still in play. So James Gunn won't be directing, but the script he wrote, because there was that fracas with him and Marvel, and I'm not going to get into all that, except in a few exceptions. I try to stay positive on the show because there's enough negative out there, people. Okay, so there was a raccoon named Oreo, that was the model for Rocket in the Marvel movies. You know, he's been in Guardians of the Galaxy, he's been in Avengers Infinity War. And when you look at this raccoon, yeah, I mean, you can see it. Looks just like Rocket Raccoon. So,
Yeah, he does.
yeah, and his name is Oreo. I guess he's at least once, if not more than once, he was on the red carpet. James Gunn was carrying the raccoon during movie premieres. There's a picture here with him hanging out with Oreo, but he's left the cosmos, according to this, at the age of 10. And then he said there was a tweet that says, "Rest in peace to Oreo the raccoon, the real-life model for Rocket Raccoon. Oreo was also the raccoon that went to the red carpet with Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn when the movie debuted in Hollywood. Thank you for your awesomeness, Oreo." And then Quinta Layla, who I'm assuming was a handler or a keeper perhaps for Oreo or maybe involved with the movies, said, "We've had only the saddest news today. Our hearts is broken as we've lost our best friend, our guardian of the galaxy, Mr. Oreo Raccoon." So, and then there's also in this, there is a quote, I'm not sure who this is attributed to, but it says, "Many thanks to our wonderful vets for their compassion and care." And it says, "Oreo, you made so many lives happy. You've been an amazing ambassador for raccoons everywhere." And I love raccoons. I love the little bandit scamps. I do. I love raccoons and squirrels, and people are like, "No, you don't want them in your attic." I'm like, "Well, but I still love them." So we got a family of raccoons that lives in a tree near our house, and we see them cruising up and down our fence sometimes. So what do you have any input on that, Robin, on Mr. Oreo?
Well, just that it's sad to see him go. I mean, the Guardians movies were probably some of my favorite of all the Marvel movies that have been out so far, and a lot of that was due to Rocket, and knowing that the raccoon that he's based on is gone, it's sad.
Yeah, there's a lot of personality to that face, that raccoon or whatever. Yeah, so all right, well, Oreo, may you, I don't know, chase, maybe may you be the panda in the trash dumpster of your dreams, Oreo. Because I don't think there's anything bad about a trash panda. I don't think there's anything bad about it at all. Anyway, and I have a friend named Zeb who cosplays as Rocket Raccoon and has his wife, Nicole, made him an amazing Rocket Raccoon outfit, and he wears it to charity events and helps kids and stuff like that. And he was really sad about this. But I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, his wife used Oreo as a model for the mask that he wears. So and Zeb really wanted and didn't get in Infinity War a scene where like Rocket's like fighting in the woods and then a raccoon walks out. He wanted that. So I don't know. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Oreo, we will miss you. All right. This is, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, Robin, but really the impetus for this show, this particular topic, GoBots, is a few months back, Tom Scioli, who's a writer artist, he's amazing. He did G.I. Joe versus Transformers and Godland, and he's amazing. I call him the Stanley Kubrick of comic books. But he's doing a GoBots miniseries through IDW.
Yes, he is.
Okay, are you collecting that?
Yeah, I've only gotten up to issue 2, so I'm not completely caught up yet. But
it's what do you? Because he's got a different take on the origin.
That he does.
Yeah, but you got to understand that Tom Scioli, he's like a gonzo. He's not a child of the 80s, but he'll take 80s material and do a deep dive on it and then do his version of it.
I read a bit of the G.I. Joe Transformers stuff he did, and that is some trippy stuff.
I love it. It's been one of my favorite surprise things that I found in years. Tom has been kind enough to come on the show a couple of times. I told him, I said, "Hey, if you want to drop by the show today, you're welcome to. If not, send me, something if you want." And he basically just said, "Hey, I won't be able to join on Saturday, but thanks for the invitation." He says, issue 4 of GoBots comes out February 20th. If you feel like giving a shout out, I'll absolutely give it a shout out. I'll be honest, I have no idea what the heck is happening in this comic book series, but I like it. That's the best way I could put it. And there is a scene where Cy Kill peels out on Leader One's face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And he's doing interesting stuff like Gobatron, the planet the GoBots came from, looks like an apple core. And in the middle of the apple core stem, there's a sphere. And there's stuff inside the sphere. There's like hidden adventure lands. Like nobody's quite sure what all's in there. And Tom is doing some interesting stuff with that. That I'll just say is kind of Planet of the Apes, not exactly, and I'll just leave it at that. So, but yeah, I recommend anybody, whether you're a G.I. Joe or Transformers fan, if you're into the comic book medium art form at all, read G.I. Joe versus Transformers, because he does some stuff on the page I've never seen anybody else do. And like Robin said, it's trippy as all get out. So, I think it's a 6-issue mini. I'm not sure how many issues it is, but issue 4 is coming out on February 20th. So I recommend people pick that up just to support the kind of crazy stuff that IDW is letting Tom Scioli do. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, okay. Because was there ever a GoBots comic in the 80s that you know of?
There, sort of. There was the short comics that ran in the GoBots magazine.
Yep.
And then there were, I believe that there were a number of GoBots related comics published in Europe for the by Eagle Comics, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
For the Machine Robo version of the series.
Right, which we'll maybe talk about later, but just since that's come up, I don't want to forget to talk about it. Machine Robo was a Japanese toy line where the GoBot machines were just machines and they were piloted by humans. Mm-hmm. But you could either go from being a vehicle to basically a mecha. And when Tonka optioned the rights and brought them in 83, they kind of reconcepted it to where they were actually autonomous, sentient robots. So that was, and it was Machine Robo, and they all just had number designations. And then Tonka, a lot of people, I'd never thought of Tonka as being that, it's like they make the big yellow dump trucks, right? But no, they did some pretty interesting stuff with GoBots. They reconcepted it. I think they came up with Gobatron and all that, the whole backstory. And then,
bit of it.
Yeah, and then they gave them names. So instead of being like, NXA1, it was, like Turbo, and they were the ones that the GoBots in Japan, when they were Machine Robo, and was it Bandai? Let me look here. I think it was Bandai. Could be wrong. Let's see.
I know that the company that made them
Popey.
is owned by Bandai.
Yeah, it was Poppy, Popy, the now defunct character division of Bandai. So anyway, they came up with all of that, and when Bandai basically was doing it, they were just friendly and enemy, and then Tonka came up with the Guardians and the Renegades. Guardians being led by Leader One, the Renegades being led by Psy-Kill, who turned into a motorcycle. And as far as bat poop nasty, in my opinion, Psy-Kill is much worse than Megatron. He's he's like chaos nasty, right? Like Megatron at least has a reason for his stuff. Like Psy-Kill's just like, I'm just bad. I'm a bad seed. So, yep. So anyway, all right, moving on. I did want to give a shout out to wrap up the news with a couple items here, and then we'll talk GoBots. I got a lot of my information on GoBots there's a Sci-Fi Wire video called GoBots, Everything You Didn't Know. And I want to give a shout out for that. Of course, Wikipedia is a great source. And then I just briefly want to mention this. Hasbro, now this is a news item from 2015. This is probably the oldest news item I've ever thrown out on this show. Hasbro might be making a GoBots movie, and this is comicbookmovie.com. Some other places picked it up, but this is from 2015. And basically the thing here is that Hasbro in January of 2015 filed documents to the United States Patent and Trademark Office for a new GoBots trademark under distribution of motion pictures, ongoing television programs, and toys, games, and playthings, namely toy vehicles and accessories for use therewith. So as for 2015, the only thing I found after that was more of a joke post. At first I was like, wow, but no, it was a joke post. So do you have any insight, rumors, hopes along those lines there, Robin?
I'm afraid I don't have any insight. I know that people on the design team for Transformers are always trying to sneak in GoBots homages where they can in the new toys. But beyond that, I hope to see a resurgence of GoBots. I know that it's always been tangled up in a lot of legal stuff, but it'd be nice to see it return.
Well, more people are talking about GoBots right now, and a lot of it is because of Tom Scioli's comic book.
It's true.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple of news items that have come up simply because of his comic book. So, all right, well, I need to get us to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more GoBots, but I'm going to throw some love at a sponsor. We'll have a break. And I gotta run across the hall and, as they say, shake the dew off my lily, because I busted into the studio at the last minute. So if I don't come back right when the break comes off, Zach's going to babble, and Robin, you're welcome to talk about GoBots. Talk about who your favorites are or something like that. Okay. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today. The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Troll Lord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
You can imagine they're from another world. Mighty robots disguised as mighty vehicles. You can pretend only you and the friendly GoBots can save the Earth from the enemy GoBots. You're trapped, Turbo.
Leader, one to the rescue.
They hide among us as earthly vehicles, but you can change them into robots, each sold separately.
Take this, Psycho! Now who's trapped?
GoBots. Leader 1, Turbo, and Psykill, each sold separately. New from Tonka.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk. Zach was in there kind of laughing at that commercial. You love that, didn't you? All right. That's the kind of toy commercials we got in the 80s, Zach. We don't, my son now, to him, he don't even know what a commercial is. It's all toy reviews on YouTube.
That's crazy.
We used to get the best commercials. Steven Spielberg directed those. All right, so we're back talking GoBots with big GoBots fan, Robin from California. And if you want to give a shout out or say hi to anybody, Robin, feel free.
Well, biggest shout out I'd like to give is to John, the owner of Toy Addict in La Mesa, California. He is my best hookup for GoBots.
Okay.
He is always down to give you a good deal on toys, let me tell you.
All right. And then also you mentioned earlier your wife collects. What was the toys that your wife collects?
She mostly collects doll lines like Monster High and Ever After High.
Okay.
But she's also into Transformers and Marvel Legends and such with me. So
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Got a tweet from listener Doug Gillum. Doug is a very active, following my Twitter and the show and everything. I appreciate you very much. So you can go to Shane Plays. I'll try to retweet this. He said, here's a GoBots reference in a comics a friend and I did back in 1983. So he was doing a comic in 1983, and he sent out, I don't have time to go too deep into this during the show, but I see Nightcrawler and Wolverine, and there is, it looks like maybe they're walking past a toy store and there's some GoBots. I'm not sure. But anyway, I'll retweet that, go to Shane Plays, and you can see that from Doug Gillum. And Doug, I always appreciate all your input and everything on social media and for the show and all that. Okay, so I'm gonna blast through because we've only got about 12 minutes left. Radio goes quick. I'm gonna blast through a timeline of the GoBots that I put together mainly from that, again, GoBots, everything you didn't know from Sci-Fi Wire. Go look that up on YouTube. Like to give credit where credit's due. 1982, and feel free to chime in on any of this stuff, Robin, if you want to add or correct, okay?
alrighty.
All right, so in 1982, Machine Robo by Poppy, a division of Bandai, the character division of Bandai, releases Machine Robo in Japan. They're human-piloted mechanical machines. They're not independent robots. They're vehicles that transform to mecha. And they have the friendly and enemy factions. And I've got a big highlight here, Robin. They came out before blank. What do you think that blank is?
Transformers.
The Transformers. The GoBots precede the Transformers. Now, I got to admit, when I was a kid, my knowledge of GoBots was some of the toys, and then every now and then I caught a little snippet of the cartoon if I was homesick or something like that. I remember in 8th grade I was homesick once, and I just assumed that they were a quick knockoff of the Transformers. They weren't. Okay, we might not have the Transformers as a big, massive imported thing from Japan if GoBots hadn't come first. Possibly.
That is true.
Yeah. So, and I'm a big Transformers nerd. Always have been. In 1983, Tonka licenses Machine Robo toy line for the USA and calls them GoBots. Changes the name to GoBots. I have this highlighted, a year before Transformers. They were reconcepted as self-aware robots, not human-piloted machines. They were given names, not just numbers, and Tonka came up with Gobatron, the home planet, before Cybertron. All right. September 1984. That's suddenly, boom, you get the Transformers animated series, and you get Transformers toys flooding U.S. toy stores. Now, I don't remember GoBots ever flooding the toy stores, but I remember being out there. Now, in 1984 to 1985, you had the Challenge of the GoBots cartoon, which, if most people remember the GoBots, it's probably that cartoon, would be my guess. Could be wrong. It aired one season. It was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. And do you know, as a piece of trivia, Robin, how many episodes they had?
I remember it's like 65, actually.
It is 65. Ding, ding, ding. So, yeah, perfect. Which is a heck of a lot of episodes for a season, but, and they were 22 minutes each. They weren't just like little 5 minutes. So that was 1,430 minutes of GoBots. That's a lot. That's like 3 seasons of another TV show. And was it the cartoon? Do you happen to know? I couldn't get clarity on this. Is it if it was the cartoon that introduced the Guardians and Renegades concept?
I know that the cartoon was the one that popularized it. I know that they didn't start showing up on the toy packages as Guardians and Renegades until after the cartoon. Okay.
Yeah, before that they were friendly and enemy. So, hold on a second. GoBots. I'm looking up the Battle of the Rock Lords because I noticed there were some pretty big names in the voice acting for Battle of the Rock Lords. Anyway, all right, going on. So the cartoons introduced the Guardians and the Renegades faction, probably, and some fairly big voice actors, including some connections with Transformers, were Phil Hartman, of course, from Saturday Night Live and other things, News Radio. He was Professor Baron Von Joy. That's a perfect name for a robot. Frank Welker, who's Frank Welker, Robin?
Frank Welker is best known, at least to Transformers fans, as Megatron and Soundwave.
That's right. He did Scooter. And then Peter Cullen. Do you want to enlighten us who Peter Cullen is, Robin?
Well, on top of many other characters, he is the voice of Optimus Prime that everyone knows.
That's right. He is to Optimus Prime like Kevin Conroy is to Batman. So
absolutely,
yeah, he played Pincher, who was one of the bad guys. That's interesting that Optimus Prime basically played, and then Megatron, who was the big bad Transformer leader, played basically the Bumblebee of the GoBots. He played Scooter. So yeah, that's interesting. All right, then in 1985. You had the Super GoBots. These were 6-inch toys, and there were new characters from the show that were sold to expand out the line. And there was an animated feature, GoBots Battle of the Rock Lords, that was intended to also support. It was intended to do two things: keep the GoBots in the public eye, but to support a new spinoff toy line called Rock Lords, which were, get this, it was the 80s. Just roll with it, no pun intended. They were rocks that transformed into robots or people or something like that. So just roll with it, baby. And this was all of this stuff in 1985 was intended to compete with Transformers, the movie, the Super GoBots, all of that. Now, some of the big names in the Battle of the Rock Lords movie, which was an animated feature, I guess it came out in theaters, I don't remember, that it had Margot Kidder, who's Lois Lane from the Superman movies with Christopher Reeves, had Telly Savalas, who was Kojak. And I think it had some other big name voice acting in it as well. So, and then, 1987, the GoBots line effectively ends. And then, because they stopped producing the toys. And then in 1991, Hasbro, who owns the Transformers, who brought the Transformers over from Japan and gave them a different backstory and did the cartoon and comic book with Marvel Comics and all that, buys Tonka for $516 million. So the GoBots are folded into the Transformers toy line, which I'm still fuzzy on how that works. It's almost like they're a different dimension of Transformers. Do you have any insight on how that works? I'm not sure how that works, Robin.
Yeah, they it's kind of like the whole multiverse concept in DC and Marvel Comics. The GoBots are a different universe's interpretation of how Transformers and their homeworld of Cybertron work.
Okay. So, but they are officially Transformers at this point.
They are officially part of the Transformers franchise, yeah.
Do you know if Transformers has done anything? I know you said they work in occasional references, but do you know if they've done anything official with GoBots in the past several years?
There have been a lot of the Collectors Club that used to run the BotCon conventions.
Okay.
They did a lot with GoBots in a lot of their convention exclusive fiction, and there's been a couple of toy releases that have been GoBots homages, like Fracture in the first movie line, who was essentially Crasher.
Okay.
But beyond that, they haven't done anything exclusively official up until Tom Scully's comic. So.
Okay. Oh, also, Roddy McDowell was a voice in the GoBots movie. They always try to get these. You were holding up your finger. What's up, Zach?
I just had a question for why did Transformers blow up instead of GoBots? If you got a short answer for that.
Okay. Robin, you want to tackle that?
Short answer, marketing. The Hasbro marketed Transformers a heck of a lot better than Tonka did with GoBots. They had the cartoon. They had Marvel Comics producing the comic. They were all over the place. GoBots just wasn't as much.
Well, they also, and I agree with everything Robin is saying there. From a pure business standpoint, reading up on how Transformers flooded the toy stores, I guess that Hasbro maybe had better distribution channels.
Probably that.
Yeah, so they were getting Transformers because Transformers were more expensive. But, they had really interesting packaging. And now some of the things, there's other stuff, and I don't know how true this is, but as I was researching, Zach, it ties right into that. Great question. Some of the things I think maybe why Transformers caught kids' attention, because in the GoBots, there was not a major distinction between the factions in the vehicle design types. When the Transformers first came out, all of the Autobots were basically ground vehicles, and all of the for the most part, all of the Decepticons were planes, weapons of some sort, a cool cassette recorder that had things that could eject out of its chest, and you had Shockwave, which was a gun. Megatron was a gun. So there was a big distinction, and also there was insignia on the packaging for the GoBots. Like the packaging would show you this is a Guardian versus a Renegade, but the toys themselves didn't have any insignia or markings on them. So I'm not saying that's the whole reason it lived or died, but you bring everything together, and there you go. So do you have anything you wanted to add to that, Robin?
No, that pretty much sums it up. Like, they used the insignias on one or two toys, but those weren't the mainline releases. Those weren't the little dudes. So,
but let me tell you, Zach, they didn't have the command center. Command center, baby. Cafeteria. Okay, so believe it or not, we've only got a couple of minutes here. Robin, who is your favorite, Guardian, and who is your favorite Renegade, and why? And it could just be pure nostalgia. I mean,
favorite Guardian's a little harder to pin down. I want to say Turbo, just because I loved the toy when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
But favorite Renegade is an easy win for that. Crasher. She was an amazing villain. She was cackling mad. She was violent. She was more competent than most of the other GoBots under Cycle's command.
Yeah, she's kind of like a female GoBot version of the Joker. She's always cackling about everything. And she's got that great stomp, that earthquake stomp. So, it's and I will recommend, I watched a few episodes of the GoBots Challenge of the GoBots cartoon last night, and some of the Battle of the Rock Lords, and my 5-year-old was all into it. He wasn't like, where's my Transformers? He was all into it. So, and it was pretty good storytelling. I mean, it really was. So I recommend, checking it out. Now, they're a lot harder to find than the Transformers animated stuff. But all right, man, I got to wrap us up, Robin. Any final thoughts on the GoBots?
Just that they were an integral part of my childhood, and I'm glad to see that even with the unwarranted hate they get, they are still popular with some people.
People are just jealous because they were first. So, and they went to 6 Super Bowls, so they're mad at them. So, and I got to answer this one quick. How collectible are GoBots? Like, are they fairly economical to get on eBay, or are you going to spend a lot?
It depends on the GoBots. A lot of the earlier releases, they got produced more, so you can find them for pretty cheap. Some of the later ones will cost you upwards of $10 to $20.
That's not bad. Yeah. All right. I got to wrap us. That's actually not bad. I got to do one thing real quick, Robin. It's the bad joke of the week. We have a special guest bad joke storyteller, the robot from Lost in Space. Let it rip, Zach.
Yo, Robinson, I will tell you a joke. Why did the robot cross the road? Because he was carbon bonded to the chicken.
We have a lot of work to do.
There you go. Special robot joke teller. Robin, it's been a pleasure, man. Stay in touch, buddy.
All right. Thanks for having me on, man.
Fellow renegades, today we shall destroy the Guardians once and for all.
Oh, yeah, Screwhead gonna whip all the butts. Screwhead, a mean little GoBot, got a big old screw on his head. Screwhead gonna be like, pow, pow, smack, pow, pow, knocking good guys down. They all be like, who are you? And I'll be like, Screwhead.
All right, we are going to launch a surprise attack on the Guardian base.
Oh, yeah, Screwhead gonna be like this. Doot, deet, bop, doot, doot. Guardians be like, what's that? Oh, just a car with a screw in the front. Then they be all relaxing, thinking I'm not Screwhead. Then I'll be like, bing, bang, bow, bow. Good guy runs into the other room, all scared of Screwhead. I knock on the door like, knock, knock, who's there? Not who, not Screwhead. Then he open the door and be all like, uh-oh, Screwhead.
Screwhead, let's cool it with the commentary. We will attack in 2 teams. I will command Team 1. Team 2's leader will be Tank.
Oh, snap, he said Screwhead. Heck yeah, you'll be high-fiving Screwhead, cause he be all leading Team 2.
Screwhead, I said Tank.
My bad, Screwhead's not leading Team 2. Tank is. Love Tank. Screwhead see Tank in the halls and be all, sup, Tank? How you doing today? Tank be like, I'm good, Screwhead. I'll be like, okay.
Me, I just couldn't with him, right? I mean...
We will remember Screw. Will you remember him?
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.